with your new friend Ty.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's a podcast where you find new friends and new music. And this week, I'm joined by a Texas native with a no-nonsense attitude who might have played a little bit of minor league ball before turning his attention towards music. He's got a brand new album out later this month. So let's welcome to the show, Mr. Creed Fisher. Creed, how the heck are you, man?
I'm doing great, brother. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Just recently relocated to Las Vegas, so still trying to get used to all of this nonsense out here.
Man, I wish you nothing but the best, buddy. I'm jealous.
Yeah, well, when you make your way out here, we'll have to sit down and grab a drink. But we'll tee off with Creed next.
It's time to tee off with Ty and today's guest, Creed Fisher. Here comes the first four.
Okay, here we go with question number one, man. Let's let everybody get to know you. If you couldn't be in the entertainment industry, what job would you have?
If I couldn't be in the entertainment industry, I would totally be a football coach. That was kind of my first passion before I got into music. I played minor league football till I was 33, and I coached youth football for 6 years. So 6th grade through 3rd grade. That was where my passion was, man. So if I wasn't doing music, that's definitely what I'd be doing.
That is a heck of an answer, my friend. Okay, how about this one? If I give you control of the music at a party, what's the very first song that you're going to play to get everybody up and moving?
Creed Fisher and Brian Scott, the Union Underground tune I redid across the nation. You can't beat that.
I love it, man. Okay, if you could bring a character from a TV show or a movie to life and hang out with them for a day, who would it be?
Man, let me think about this one for a minute. Probably John Wayne, man.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I would love to sit down and just talk to that guy for a few minutes.
He seems like an interesting individual, just in general. He seems like he's got so many stories.
He seems like a guy that was very, very complex when you don't really think of that, him like that. He seems like a guy that was, he was the guy that could be the tough guy, but he also loved the finer things. He loved to drink wine, and he was just a very, very cool dude, man.
See, and I don't think he gets enough respect for that. I don't think a lot of people realize how you put the perfect word to it, how complex he was off screen.
He was very different off screen than he was on screen, and I don't think he, broke completely away. I mean, he was very, very strong alpha male type, but I just feel like he was very complex and in the things he enjoyed and the music he listened to and, the food he ate, and he wasn't really what you would think if you were just going by the movies he made.
I completely agree. Okay, here we go. Last question of the first four. If you could have an unlimited supply of anything other than money or a money-making machine, whiskey, tacos, guitar strings, scotch tape, whatever, what would it be?
Well, probably an endless supply of Tito's vodka.
Ooh, Tito's handmade vodka.
Yeah. Or either that or zigzags,
Okay.
You can't have enough zigzags.
I love it. Well, Creed, man, thank you for letting us get to know you with the first four. But now let's kind of really dig into the Creed Fisher story. Pull back the curtain a little bit and give everybody kind of the Cliff Notes version of growing up in Texas, and tell us kind of how you got into football and how you got into music.
Well, I grew up in Odessa, Texas, which is, it's in the middle of nowhere out in West Texas. And it's where it's where all the oil comes from. 20%, 25% of the oil that's consumed in America comes from there. And it's a blue collar, hard nosed town, Permian Panthers from Friday Night Lights fame. And I went to OHS, and football was just a way of life, man. And where I grew up, and it's a religion out there. And, growing up, going to Ratliff Stadium my whole life, I was as a kid, and then having the movie come out, it's just, I think just coming from that area, man, football is just ingrained in you. And so I think I took that, and then I played 9 years of minor league football. So
how old were you when you first started playing organized football?
I was in fifth grade. In fifth grade. I coached football from third to sixth, and to be honest with you, man, I don't recommend that. I don't like third graders playing football. I think fifth, sixth grade is when I got into it, and I got into it in fifth grade, and I think sixth grade is when it kind of took hold with me, and it followed me into seventh, where obviously seventh grade's junior high, first year of junior high.
See, and I've got a third grader now, and I think I agree with you. It'd be tough to take him and put him out on a football field with the size that he is, and with everything we know about football now. It'd be tough to throw him out there as a third grader, but as he gets into middle school and junior high, I think fifth, sixth grade is the time that I'm sure that he's going to start bugging me to go out there and play football with him.
I think that's a whole different subject we could talk about all day, but I definitely think fifth, sixth grade is the earliest I would ever put a child in football.
Well, I think you've got a little bit of experience there. If there's anybody that's ever been on this podcast that has the ability to formulate a genuine opinion about that, I think it would be you, my friend. Played minor league football. What does that look like from a player's perspective?
It's very ugly, man. Have you ever seen that movie? What was the movie where it was the minor league baseball team where they're on the bus that looks like a bus you would ride to high school? It was kind of like that. It was definitely how you would picture minor league baseball, I guess. I mean, I didn't make anything really. I mean, I'm very little money was in it, and it was. I never had aspirations to play in the NFL. I just loved playing football. And it was something that I knew, I never made anything. I never made any money, not much money, but it was just something I loved to do. And so I did it until I couldn't do it anymore.
Well, and once you get out of high school, I mean, that's really the only option. There's not a whole lot of adult football, tackle football rec leagues once you get out of high school. So you've really got to kind of, if you want to keep playing, chase something like that. What position did you play?
Well, I played outside linebacker.
Okay.
And most of my career in minor league football, I played outside linebacker. I played center probably when I was in my early 30s. I weighed about 260. So I was a little bigger, but I think, I think my time playing center helped me be an outside linebacker because I just really learned the game. I learned what that side of the ball was trying to do.
That's definitely got to give you a leg up.
Those are some of my best my favorite memories of my life, man. Those years playing with those guys. I mean, I think it's kind of like college football. You don't get paid. We got paid a little, but it wasn't enough to pay our bills. We still had to work, jobs. And I just think it was for the love of the game. And I wouldn't trade those years for anything, man. It's kind of what led me into music.
Well, so was music something that you always kind of wanted to do? Was it always around your household growing up, or did that kind of grow on you as you grew with football and kind of grew up as an adult?
I think it was something that I wanted to do from a very early age. When I saw George Strait, I was
probably every time.
I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And that's when, my grandparents retired to Temple, Belton area. So that, and George kind of came from Waco, that kind of area. And I just think that, I remember being a little boy. Actually, the cover to my album, How Country Music Sounded Before It All Went to Poo Poo, Volume 1. It's a picture of me in my grandfather's boots and my grandfather's hat. And I just think that was my earliest memories of wanting to do that, And I just think for me, I ended up moving back to Midland and then, you kind of grow up. And obviously, when you're 8 or 9 years old, you don't really know that you could ever be a country music singer. You don't really think about that kind of stuff. You just want to go outside and throw a ball, so I think I kind of just fell in love with football. And I think, the way my life played out, I graduated high school and I was always in trouble, in those years. And I joined the Army because I felt like I needed to, I felt like it was something I just needed to grow up. And so instead of, playing college football, I joined the Army and was, in the Army for 3 years. And when I got out of the Army, I think that love for playing was just still there. I mean, it's there in me right now. I had my football helmet on today, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those things when you start playing at that level for that long, that it never really leaves. There's just a point where you kind of have to step away because physically it's not something that's quite possible anymore.
I would have really, really loved to play in one of those, what are those games where everybody comes back, like the reunion games where, the senior thing. I would really love to play one more game. I really would, man, because I had a neck problem, so I had to get out. I had to quit playing, and it wasn't on my own. I didn't want to quit playing. If it was up to me, I'd still be playing. But so I think, going through the years and having the neck surgeries I've had and just getting better, I'm like, I can go one more game. I got one more game in me.
There, you heard it here. If you guys have an alumni game and need one more player out there, Creed Fisher wants one more shot at the gridiron.
I do. I really do, man.
So I want to kind of pivot a little bit to talk about what your life looked like kind of after football, because there was a point where you went down kind of a pretty dark path. You ended up buying this little blue house that's kind of become somewhat of a representation of where your journey's at and where it started at. Kind of explain that for everybody and why that little blue house is so important to you.
Man, I tell you what, man, it hits to the heart, to be honest with you, man. And I just think for me, it represents my struggle. It was a really, really dark period in my life because I was married, happily married, and I had 3 kids, and things happen and you're young and for me, I got divorced in 2008, which was hard. It was really, really hard for me. And I mean, I wouldn't change anything because I think today looking back, I wouldn't change a thing because it was definitely the best thing for me. It was definitely the best thing for everybody. But at the time, it was really, really hard. And I played football through the 2009 season. And then I had physical problems that I had to quit playing. And I just think for 10 years, my whole life, for 12 years, my whole life had been my family, my wife, and football, and it kind of all came crashing down at the same time. And so if you can imagine all this time you have on your hands, when you lose, 2 of the things that were the most important thing in your life, so I just think that's the Creed Fisher that made my music really good, man. All the songs I wrote in those years and just the feelings, the heartbreak, that I carried on from that, I think really, really had a big impact on my career.
Well, and I feel like a lot of times, especially in the mind of somebody who's creative like yourself, when life becomes a mess, a lot of people kind of retreat towards that creativity to work through a lot of the emotions and a lot of what's going on with life. And you kind of touched on it there, but how important was songwriting and music just in general when you were in that part of your life and pulling you out of it, really?
Man, it was everything. It was exactly what God had planned, and it was just what made my music from the heart. I still write songs just because I'm not in that place, just because I'm happy and I'm doing well, doesn't mean I can't go back to that place. I still remember what it was like. I can always go back to that very, very dark place, and that just kind of lends. That's, those songs that come out of that, I think, are some of my best. I think those songs and the ones like This Side of Town, where it's about the morals and the way of life that we grew up on, and just how we were proud to be blue collar. We were proud that we worked for our money. We didn't ask for handouts. We worked hard. We played hard. And I just think that it kind of all blends together. But I think that time in my life, man, it really is what made my music what it is.
Well, and even now, when you sit down to write a song, what does that process look like for you? Are you one of those guys that locks yourself in a room for hours until the song's finished? You sort of write it as it comes to you? You start with a melody? What's that look like?
No, man. I mean, I wrote so many songs as a younger, when I got divorced and I went through that really, really, tough part of my life, I probably wrote, 200 or 300 songs. And I think that in that earlier part, just being younger, being, hungry, and, I wrote all the time back in those days. And today the process is a little, it looks a little different. Sometimes just the hooks will come to me and I'll, but pretty much, man, I mean, it either comes to me or I just sit down when it's time and I just knock it out, That's kind of, Whiskey and the Dogs is the new album. And I think, you got probably like a third of the album that was written 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then you got, a third of the album that was written in the last 2 weeks.
Well,
and then you got a third that's in between the two, so I just think at this point, man, I'm still recording songs that I wrote 10 years ago.
That's
I think,
not bad to have a repertoire that goes that far back that you can still kind of lean on, that's still quality music like that.
Yeah. And it's, there's no rhyme to the reason, to be honest with you, except the good Lord is making it, his way. But
well, and we've got a couple of songs here for everybody. Sorry to cut you off there, Creed. But I think this might lead right into it. We've got a couple of songs for everybody. The first one is off of that album. It's called High on the Bottle. Give us the story of how this song came about and what the writing was like for this song. If you can remember it, it's not 10 years, 10 years old.
It was 10 years old, but I remember it like it was yesterday. High on the Bottle was a song I wrote when I was when I moved to Fort Worth, and I was going back and forth to Fort Worth, all the time. And it was just a time in my life where I was touring so much, and I was trying to tour from West Texas, and the song starts out and it's the white lines here on this highway roll on forever, so that's kind of where it came from. I was driving. I was just always going somewhere. My life was just total chaos, to be honest with you, at the time. And so I wrote that song driving back and forth from Fort Worth. And it's just a song about Creed Fisher. It's a song about my journey. It's a song about all the outlaw greats that I love, man. I mean, if you look at anybody that I consider top tier, Merle Haggard, George Jones, Waylon Hank, and there's many, many, many more, but they're all high on the bottle, addicted to the pain. It's, you give up something to get, when you say yes, you're saying no to something else. And I think as an artist, as an outlaw country artist, when you say yes to that way of life, you're saying no to another way of life. And it's just not easy. It's not easy finding people in your life that can adapt to that way of life. And especially when it comes to relationships, to women, to marriage, to being happy with, a woman, a man. I mean, and because there's a lot of there's a lot of female women artists out there too, to do this, but it just makes it really hard because you're always gone.
Well, let's give everybody a chance to listen to exactly what you're talking about. We've got it right here. This one's called High on the Bottle from today's guest, Creed Fisher.
White lines here on this highway roll on forever. It's tearing my heart, it won't ever fall. I guess that is why I'm a country music singer. High on the bottle, addicted to the pain. I could have been with a beautiful Christian woman. She loved me so, but I had to walk away. 'Cause I can't be good out on the road. The women that I meet, they all seem to know I'm high on the bottle, addicted to the pain. So show me the way to the stage in this bar. Let it fill with people that have broken hearts. And I'll play a sad song about the hurting and the cheating. High on the bottle, addicted to the pain. Honky-tonk life that I lead, it suits me just fine. This shot of Jim Beam goes real good with this joint in my hand. I've never been one to follow the rules, none. Just high on the bottle, to the pain. So show me the way to the stage in this bar. Let it fill with people that have broken hearts. And I'll play a sad song about the hurting and the leaving. Bottle, addicted to the pain. I'll play a sad song about the hurting and the cheating. High on the bottle, addicted to the pain. I stay high on the bottle, addicted to the pain.
And that song was called High on the Bottle by Creed Fisher. That song off of his upcoming album, Whiskey and the Dog. And Creed, that comes out October 22nd, right?
Yes, sir. 2 weeks almost.
Ooh.
From Friday. I'm really excited, man. It's been 2.5 months since, the pre-orders. So we're really excited to get it out.
Well, it'll be, I guess, 2 weeks to the day when we drop this episode, because it'll come out on Friday. But I'm always interested in how artists come up with the names for their projects, albums specifically. Where did Whiskey and the Dog come from?
Man, I kind of pride myself in being a maker of albums. It's kind of what I've done, over the years. Life of a Working Man came out in December of 2018. And since then, I've put out 9 albums. So, and they've all went top 5 in iTunes. And I just think putting out an album, man, it's an art. It's an art in itself. I think you just got to feel it. And what I do, you know, as the album comes together, I just kind of decide what feels best, you know. And there's 2 things when you put out albums that you really have to worry about. Well, number 1, what are you going to call the album? I think number 2, how are you going to put the songs in the order that you put the songs? So I think those 2 things are kind of an art form in itself. And I just think over the years, I've gotten good, you know, at doing it. I always kind of like the album to sound a little bit dysfunctional, a little bit gritty. You know, it has to have a little bit of something. The album title almost has to have a hook in itself, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that kind of drew me in when I saw the name of the album. I immediately knew that I wanted to ask you about it because it's such a unique name. I feel like there's a story behind it.
There is totally a story behind it. I'd been in Fort Worth doing a show at Billy Bob's, private little thing, fundraiser for veterans. And it was like the worst blizzard of 30 years hit. And it was back in February of this year. So me and my girlfriend, my fiance, had a big fight that night. And then I had dropped her off at the airport, and it took me 8 hours to do a 3-hour drive to get home because the roads are so bad.
That's crazy.
So I get home, and if you know anything about San Antonio, we haven't had over a foot of snow in San Antonio in 30 years. Okay, so
that doesn't surprise me.
It snows 2 or 3 foot here.
Oh, wow.
So the electricity's out. You know, it's just a bad deal. And to be honest with you, man, I got my new dog, my new American bully, Hank. I named him Hank, which I'm a huge Hank Jr. fan. So I got him in December, and he was kind of the inspiration behind it. But I was pissed at my girl at the time, and I came home, and we were sitting here. We had no electricity. We were writing songs by candlelight, and that song just came out, man. It's a waltz, and it's just a story about being mad at my girlfriend and telling her to take everything but the whiskey and the dog, because those are the only 2 things I needed.
That is a fantastic way to name an album, my friend. I'm excited to hear that. But is this really your 4th album that you've put out this year?
I've put out 9 albums in the last 2 years.
That is insane. That is phenomenal. And it's all, I listened through as much as I could over the last week and a half or so. And it's all great music. I mean, you just released one that had 30 songs.
That's what I was going to say. The only thing is, all these songs I wrote is basically a greatest hits album.
That makes sense.
But you know, it still debuted top 5 in iTunes, which is crazy because all the songs have already been released, you know, but besides that, it's 8 albums that I've done in the last couple years, you know, and I'm not planning on slowing down anytime soon.
Well, and that's like we've been talking about, a brand new album coming out October 22nd. Make sure to go out, pre-save it, go buy it. Make sure to support Creed here. But Creed, you don't strike me as the a super internet social media kind of guy, but you kind of sort of got ahead of everybody in 2012 when you started releasing music for yourself, and it seems like you haven't slowed down since then at all. But what was it about doing it yourself instead of going out and finding a label and having to go promote it yourself that took you down that path instead?
It's just, I don't know, man. That's just my way. You know, I'm an introvert. You know, it's kind of like if you go listen to my song, A Few Good Old Cowboys. You know, my grandfather told me when I was little, if you have 5 people you can count as a true friend on one hand, and that's, you've done well. And I've just never made friends well, to be honest with you. And I've never been one to follow the pack. I've always been one to just question everything. And I just have to give it up to be honest with you, to the artists that came before me that blazed the trail. I mean, I'm just doing what they made possible. I have an ability to go put my own music out, and I don't have to have anybody's help. And I think that's one of the things that makes Creed Fisher is I've done it my way from the beginning, regardless. And I've always looked at it as one fan at a time. I've worked hard. I've stayed out touring. I've took every picture, signed everything. I mean, I love my fans,
Well, and I've got to believe
almost too much, almost to a fault. I love my fans, and I call them the Creed Fisher family. And it's just, I mean, to be honest with you, I have to give a lot of credit just to the guys that blaze the trails that made that possible. And then I got to choose to get with Dirt Rock. I got to make that choice because they're such a great label. They're an independent label. They allow me to be me. They've never asked me to change a thing about what I've done. And they've just been really, really good to me, man. And I couldn't be happier with where I'm at.
Well, and I'd argue that a substantial reason that you have the following that you have is because you've been doing it your way. The same reason that people follow a lot of independent artists, like Adam Sanders or Tyler Childers, guys that just go out and kind of do it their own way, just like you. And I feel like there's almost a connection, like you said, to the days of old when fans hear your music that you've put out yourself, written yourself, done it all yourself, that kind of connects them more, not just with the music, but with you in general. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I've put out 6 or 7 albums where I wrote every song on the album with by myself. So I think you're right. I mean, I just think people realize real when they hear it, and they just sense something genuine, and I think that I've been able to put out, a lot of albums. I think when and I have to keep going back to, the guys that made this possible, but to be able to put out albums like I do, and to actually start making money. And then when you start making money, you can record more and more and more. And I just keep putting out these songs. But, I think it's just in today's music, the music scene today is completely different than it ever was. Thank God. I mean, independent artists are really doing well, and I'm just excited to be part of that, And Dirt Rock Empire is an independent label. So I still consider myself an independent, just with good management and a good team behind me, Well,
that definitely helps. It helps when you believe in the management and the label as much as they believe in you.
Man, I tell you what, I get to say whatever I want to say, no matter how absurd, and I've got, Rebel in the South, the next album, Rebel in the South, after Whiskey and the Dog, which I try to not to talk about because obviously we're trying to focus on Whiskey and the Dog. Such a great album, But the next album's already recorded, and it's for them to let me say the things I said on that album and to still have my back, it mean a lot to me.
I can imagine. And we've got another song here for everybody off of Whiskey and the Dog. It's called Jesus, Haggard, and Jones. Give us the story behind where this song came from.
Well, I wrote a song that was on Old School called Blue Collar Town. And in Blue Collar Town, I mentioned we still got Jesus, Haggard, and Jones. And so when my buddy Mark Jones moved down in January, that was kind of an idea he had for a song. He said, man, I got this idea for a song, Jesus, Haggard, and Jones. Man, I don't know, man. That one came out quick, man. I think we wrote that song in 2 days. And it's just a song about Creed Fisher. It's a song about everything I kind of encountered growing up. It's a song about hanging out with my mama, I met Jesus, and hanging out with my dad, I met Haggard and Jones. I incorporated my two uncles that were a big part of my life, Uncle Ronnie and Uncle Pooch. And it's just man, I tell you what, man, I never thought that song would be as popular as it is. It's number 10 on Spotify, still after all, since it came out 2.5 months ago. And it's just so country, man. It's a waltz. It's everything you would think it's something Jamie Johnson put out. It's very, very country. And I think that's why people like it so much. It's a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. It's a very storytelling, song, and it's done very, very well, to be honest with you.
That it is. And let's give everybody a chance to love this song as well. It's called Jesus, Haggard, and Jones by today's guest, Creed Fisher.
Hanging out with my mama, I learned about Jesus. Hanging out with my dad, I met Haggard and Jones. Hanging out in the backseat, that 68 Chevy, I learned about heartache and the ways of the world. Hanging out with Uncle Ronnie, I learned to roll up a fat one. Hanging out with Uncle Pooch, I learned to kick someone's ass. Hanging out with my grandpa, I learned about hard work. Get all that you need with the pride in your hands. And Jesus for the hard times, Haggard for the fighting side, George Jones when I feel like getting high. A bottle shelf with a bar whore in a hotel, this bottle in my hands going dry. Hanging out on a bar stool, I learned about drinking. Hanging out with the police, I learned not Jesse James. Hanging out with Mark Jones, I learned he still can't get laid. Some things in this town ain't ever gonna change. Hanging out with old Hankins, learned he loves a T-bone. Hanging out with my ex-wife, she's a pain in the ass. Turns out in this life, that in the long run, the only thing you can count on, Jesus, Haggard, and Jones. Got Jesus for the hard times, Haggard for my fighting side, George Jones when I feel like getting high. A bottle on shelf with a bar whore in a hotel, this bottle in my hands going dry. For the hard times, Haggard for my fighting side, George Jones when I feel like getting high. On a bottle shelf with a bar whore in a hotel, this bottle in my hands going dry. Bottle shelf, bar whore in a hotel, this bottle in my hands going dry.
And there you have it. Now you got to know the man. That was Jesus, Haggard, and Jones by Creed Fisher. And Creed, where can people keep up with you online, keep up with what you've got going on? What are your social media handles and what's your website?
Well, the website's creedfisher.com.
Nice and simple.
We're on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the rest. But yeah, the best place to keep up with us, honestly, is the official website, creedfisher.com. That's where you can see where we're playing, keep up with the tour schedule. And go subscribe to all, definitely YouTube, man, because we're putting out a lot of videos. So you definitely want to get those notifications showing you when the, next video is coming out. To me, that's one of the most exciting things is YouTube, because you put a visual to something that you're hearing with your ears, and I just think it's very powerful sometimes. But yeah, I mean, we're all over, man. Our music's out anywhere. Music's sold. No matter what streaming site you use, we're there. And we appreciate all the fans.
Well, and like I said, this one's going to come out on Friday, October 8th, which means that when people are listening to this, you will have just dropped a brand new song, The Good Old US of A. How excited are you for that one, for everybody to take a listen to that?
Super excited. I'm kind of bummed out because I found out today the official video is not going to come out till the release date on October 22nd.
Oh,
but the song's going to come out on Friday. I'm so excited, man. It's a very, very powerful song. And the acoustic performance video is going to be coming out on Friday on YouTube. So that I'm really, really, man, I'm really excited. Obviously, I'm just so excited for this album to come out. And this is the last song, the last Instant Grat, the last single that's going to drop before the whole album comes out on October 22nd. Nice. So I'm super pumped, man.
And I had a chance to listen to it. It is a fantastic song. I'm not sure that it's going to compete, in my mind at least, with Jesus, Haggard, and Jones, but it's going to be up there. Creed, man, it's been an absolute blast. We're definitely going to have to do this again in the future, and it sounds like we're going to have a ton of new music to talk about when we do that as well.
Well, brother, thank you so much for having me, man. And I can't wait. When Rebel in the South comes out, I'd love to come back and talk about, that album as well, because it's really got me pumped, man.
Absolutely. And anytime you're out here in Las Vegas, you'll have to let me know and we'll go get some Titos. But before we let you go, we end every podcast the same way, similar to the way that we started. It's called the Final Four. Are you ready for that?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
It's time for the Final Four.
Okay, these are either the hardest questions or the easiest questions I'm going to ask you the whole time. So we'll start with this one. What's your favorite venue that you've ever played in?
My favorite venue that I've ever played in is probably the Buffalo Chip.
Oh, okay.
In Sturgis.
Was that during Sturgis?
It was during the Sturgis rally. Yeah, that was pretty epic.
I can imagine that seems like the type of crowd that is huge Creed Fisher fans. The type that really responds to your type of music.
We opened up for Toby Keith.
Oh, wow.
In 2019. And so, man, that was just such a great show. And it's such a great venue. It's 50,000 people, so that's definitely one of the best.
I can imagine. Okay, how about this one? Who are the three most recently listened to artists that you have on your Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to right now?
Man, that's a hard one right there.
I listen to. You can cheat if you need to.
I have to be honest, man. I can't lie about this stuff. I would say Upchurch. I listen to Upchurch a lot.
Okay.
And I would say probably Jamie Johnson and Merle Haggard.
If I had to pick the lineup, I think all three of them would have been in my top 10 of people that you would listen to recently.
I love Merle Haggard, man. I listen to Merle religiously, and obviously Hank Jr., but I'm really into Upchurch, man. I love Upchurch. He put me in one of his songs. So he name dropped me in one of, really, that's, what can I even say, man? Probably one of the biggest independent artists of our time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, I really love Upchurch. And Jamie Johnson, man, I've just grew up really loving Jamie Johnson, and Merle's. That's from birth.
Those are all three very solid picks. Okay, how about this one? When you're out on the road, what's the one place that you have to stop at every time you pass it? Restaurant, gas station, whatever.
It seems Buc-ee's.
You know what? That again, if I would have had to guess, you being from Texas, Buc-ee's would have been my guess.
It seems we always end up in the Buc-ee's, man. I don't know. It's the place you never want to go, but you always end up.
I've got a couple of those myself. Okay, here we go. Last question. If you could pick one thing for people to take away from this podcast or from your music in general, what would it be?
Just that I'm a guy that, grew up and had a whole different life before I got into music. And I didn't pick up a guitar till I was 35. So don't ever think your dreams or, that it's too late to chase your dreams that's the biggest thing, man. I would say, my story's a little different. I didn't get into music early in life. I had a pretty rough life, and, I did it. I came up from the bottom, and I would just say, chase, don't ever give up on your dreams. I think my story is kind of inspiring. I didn't get into music till I was 35. So 10 years later, I've come a long way. And I would just say, that's the biggest thing I would say to take away from my story.
So you're saying I've still got 4 years to be a rock star.
Exactly, man.
Counting it down.
Exactly.
Creed, man, thank you.
Don't ever give up on your dreams, man.
Thank you so much, man, for jumping on here. It's been a blast. Like I said, we're definitely going to have to hook up in the future and do this again.
Oh, I'm going to come out to Vegas just to see you, buddy.
Deal.
Twist my arm.
Well, guys, that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's the podcast where you find new friends and new music like Creed Fisher and his new album out October 22nd, Whiskey and the Dog.
Go tee off on the like button at facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast.
This has been a Tea Party Communications production. Theme music created by Jesse Quandt. Announcer voiceovers by Gwinn. And as always, hosted by Pisani.